Well, my husband Clay and I, we have 5 kids, and so we're really busy with all of them. Our 3 oldest were in college and living their lives, but still, even those college kids are still very involved, with our home life. We talk to them on a real regular basis. My 2 youngest, everyone takes their turn at being the oldest, and they get centered around them, and then they're out the door, and the next one gets their chance. So we're a close-knit bunch. We would rather sit around and play games with each other and watch a movie together than go hang out with friends. We like to hang out with our kids, and I think they kind of like to hang out with us. So. Oh, Taylor was just full of life. Just everything she did was huge, and it was on extreme. So it was, if it was super duper happy, it was extreme super duper happy. If it was super sad, it was extreme on that end too. Nothing was ever level with her, and she's been like that since she was, I remember at 18 months old, I thought, whew, she's going to be a handful. Everything she did. She was a perfectionist. Everything she did was just big and life of the party. Kids always wanted to be around her. She was always the center of her friends. She was the middle child of our 5 kids. And she was super duper loud, obnoxious, sarcastic. She was exhausting. When she would go away to school, my youngest daughter and I would kind of be like, okay, we need a little vacation. We're exhausted, because when she came in, it was whoosh, and then when she came out, she went out the same way when she left back for school. So when she left for school, it got really quiet at our house. It did quiet down, but when she'd come home, it was, okay, we're on, and that's what we did. I actually had an event that I was in charge of at church, and so I had been there all day, and Taylor, we knew that she wanted to go watch her boyfriend wrestle. He was still in high school, and she was going to school at Utah State in Logan. And so I knew that even if I said I'd rather you not, she'd just been home for Christmas break a week before that. And I knew that if we said no, she'd do it anyway. And so I said, just tell me if you're coming. Let me know so I know that you're on the road. And so, we had touched base. I knew she was coming down to Wendell to watch him wrestle. And once she got to Wendell, then she called her dad. It was President's Day weekend, Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. And she called me and said, Mom, I'm already here. It's a 3-day weekend. Can I just come home? And I'm like, no, we just had you a week ago. Go back to school. And of course she did what all girls do, and she called her daddy, and she said, Dad, and he said, oh, and so then he called me. Let her come home, and she had a friend with her, one of her roommates that we hadn't met because she'd just been to school for that first semester. And so I thought, fine. And so throughout the day, I touched base with her, and, what are you guys doing? And she said, oh, we watched the wrestling, and then they went to the mall, and they ran around at the mall, and so, we were kind of knowing that she was going to be coming home. And that night it had been a long day for me with doing this project, and so this activity, and so we'd kind of hung around, and I knew that she'd be getting home, probably she'd be home around 10:30. And right before that, I thought, I can't stay up any later. I'm just exhausted. And so I went to get in bed, and my husband came to get in bed, and I was already in bed. He was getting in bed, and the doorbell rang. And I looked at him and I said, why'd you lock the front door? Taylor's coming home. And he goes, I didn't think I did. And so he jumped up and ran out there and went to unlock the door, and he could see that there was a car out there. And he opened the door, and it was a lady, and she, you have to go up a few steps to our front door, and she had rang the doorbell and had then retreated back behind her car. And she asked my husband, asked him, are you so-and-so? And she mispronounced our name. Well, my husband's looking at this white Ford Explorer that says coroner down the side, and he goes, I had a little bit of hope. She's at the wrong house, because my husband goes by his middle name. And he said, no, you have the wrong house. And she goes, "No, are you Taylor's dad?" He goes, "I am." She goes, I don't have the wrong house. And my kids were all, I think my youngest son was downstairs, my daughter was in her room, and my husband let out a blood-curdling scream. And I was laying in bed, and the minute I heard it, I knew that Taylor had been killed. And so I kind of sat in there, just, you just go numb. And I remember getting my clothes on and heading out there, and the first thing I thought of is okay. And I remember specifically kind of taking that grief and setting it aside, going, okay, I know what happened to Tay. I didn't know any of the specifics, but I knew. And I remember, and I go, what about her friend? And she goes, her friend, there was no one else in the car. And I said, no, she has a friend with her roommate. And I just kept thinking, how am I going to call and tell this mother that her child, something's happened to her child? I haven't even met this friend of hers. And so for about the next 30 to 40 minutes, the coroner got on the radio, started calling the state police, and they started scouring the area looking for another body, looking for someone. And in that time, so, and during that time, while she was calling, my youngest came up, and she was screaming and crying, and my son had been downstairs, and he came upstairs and walked right into his room and didn't say anything to anyone. And so he kind of came out and said, I'm going to go tell Bernardo, which was Taylor's boyfriend. That's who she had watched wrestle. So he left, and we just kind of sat there, and I remember I was just very calm, and I had so much comfort surrounding me, and I just sat there. But my husband and my daughter were just really having a rough time, and they kept saying, we're not finding anybody else, we're not finding anybody else. And so in the time that it took my son to go tell her boyfriend and come back, we found out that she, after she watched Bernardo wrestle, her friend had to get back to school. So she turned around and drove back to Logan, knowing that we're expecting her, turned around, dropped her off, and drove back. So she'd been on the road for, 8 hours. And so we found out there wasn't anyone else with her. And I remember sitting there thinking, what was she going to say to me when she walked in? And I said, where's Callie? Oh, Mom, I took her home, but see, I'm just fine. I could hear her saying that. I'm just fine. And then it didn't take much longer to realize that her phone was part of it. We knew that night that her phone was part of it. I had texted her, and so even though we had had discussions with her about don't use your phone, don't text, don't drive, I had texted her a couple times that night, and she had said, hey, I said, just be careful. And she goes, well, I hope you're ready for me, because I'm almost to Mountain Home. And she was killed just about 10 miles outside of Mountain Home. So that's how we found out. Quiet. Because she was that big life. It's just quiet. And immediately following, because there was so much media about it, she had her, the Facebook post about talking about how she was Facebooking and driving is not safe. And within 2 months, we were flown to New York to do the Today Show. And about that time is when I thought, I think this is what we're supposed to do, is we're supposed to talk to people. It was like it was all lined up. And we got a phone call from a school, LeGrand, Oregon. And they said, we're doing an every 15 minutes program. And we'd like you to come talk to our school. We're doing it every 15 minutes, but we're making it texting and driving instead of drunk driving. And we did it. And first time we spoke about it, it was on what would have been her 19th birthday. And we were a mess. We were just a mess. But we didn't sugarcoat anything. We said, as they go through their mock funeral and all this, then we stand up and say, we know exactly how you all feel. Taylor had done it every 15 minutes. Her junior year, and we did a mock funeral for her best friend. And then a year later, we were having the real thing in the same gym that we did the mock funeral, but it was her that died, and it was all real. And so once we did that LeGrand, and on our way home from LeGrand on her birthday, we just went, this is what we do. And that's what we've done for 5 years. Is we've just talked to thousands and thousands of kids and adults and driver's ed kids, and each of my kids have been very involved in it because they all have a different version of their story. My son talks about hearing that scream and going and telling her boyfriend. My oldest son was actually in Mountain Home, and he talks about how he was driving, and all of a sudden he got a call from his dad. He was heading home. He'd heard about it. You know, we'd told him. And as he was heading home, his dad called and said, "Stop, get off the freeway because they haven't cleaned up the accident. She's still out there." And he said he turned off the last exit that he could get off of, and he could see the lights off in the, he could see the lights. And he said, and I just wanted to go over and be there for my big sister, or for my baby sister, and I wanted to protect her. And I just, the next day after her funeral, after she died, the funeral home called us and said, "We have her body, would you like to come see her?" And we went in, and my youngest stayed out in the foyer of the funeral chapel, but we all went in, and we just hugged her, and we just, and that's kind of what it's been like. We're not a big huggy family. Taylor, huge hugger. She would force hugs on you and lay you down, or she'd come up and go, "Hug me." And I'm like, okay, trying to hug her. And so now we're all huggers, and we all try not to miss an opportunity to, we say "I love you" a lot more. And that's how life is they're there 1 minute and then they're gone.